This one up. Is that good? Okay. Am I clear? All right. A terrible disaster, the tsunami in 2005. And in response to that disaster, a group of students and faculty members at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut got together and actually went over and helped develop a software system called Sahana. And Sahana is aimed at coordinating relief efforts following a disaster. And it's an incredibly successful open source software product. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go along. And the other accidental thing that happened was this call from ACM in response to, in 2004, 2005, a decline in enrollments in computer science in colleges and universities throughout the country. And some of you may be old enough to remember that. I know I am, and some of you younger people may not have been born at that time, but what was happening was people were scratching their heads once again, and there's this cyclic activity in computer science enrollments, and it goes up at certain times and down at certain times. And in addition to that, enrollments in computer science by women and other underrepresented groups has always been an issue. And so to address that, David Patterson, who was then the president of ACM, made two calls to the community. One was, let's think about how computer science programs can help humanity, help our neighbors. And second, why not engage the computer science curriculum actively in the open source movement, which in 2004, 2005 was just kind of evolving and emerging and becoming a real force in the world, as we've heard about so much already. And so in 2006, the HFOSS project began at Trinity College under the leadership of Ralph Morelli, whom I just mentioned to you. And the idea of it was to develop free and open source software, mainly GPL type licensed stuff, which were targeted for specifically humanitarian purposes. And the project itself was a collaborative among Trinity, Wesleyan, and Connecticut College faculty. The idea was to broaden student interest in computing, especially among traditionally underrepresented groups, to revitalize the computing curriculum, especially in software engineering, which a lot of people had felt at that time, and some people feel even still today, needs revitalization. And finally, to have a service learning component in which students actually go out and do sort of internship type activities as they would in an engineering school to leave something behind at the same time getting academic credit. So that's the HFOSS project kind of in a nutshell. The elements of the project more specifically are to develop academic courses, mainstream courses in the computer science curriculum, to develop partnerships among industry and specific clients, and I'll talk about some instances of that in a couple of minutes, to host a summer student internship program for students, for college level students to do internships during the summer and actually do work on Humanitarian FOSS software projects, to give public presentations and workshops and symposia mainly at the ACM SIGC conference, which takes place every spring. It's a major computer science education conference. To develop what's called a certificate program, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later. And finally, to grow this effort beyond the three colleges, so other colleges and universities would become partners, become what they call chapters. And finally, to incubate specific new projects that will be particularly accessible to inclusion in an undergraduate curriculum and working on by ordinary CS majors, undergraduate CS majors. So the community in about 2009 kind of looked like this. In the middle are Trinity, Wesleyan, and Connecticut College. The Humanitarian FOSS Project has this very interesting little logo. I don't know how it came about, but it's really quite cute, I think. And you can see that there's been some sponsorship among some major open source players, as well as some other universities and colleges, Bowdoin College, where I have been teaching for many years, in addition to the University of Hartford. Here's the Sahana project, which continues, and since 2005 has had other instantiations in relief efforts for other disasters. The Instead project, Drexel University, and the Open MRS project, which is involved with the deployment of medical record systems in underdeveloped countries. So this is Sahana, which I've already mentioned to you. This is Open MRS. RMH Homebase is a project that I personally have been involved in since about 2008. And it's a very interesting project involving students, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more detail about how that project works. GNOME Accessibility is software that helps disabled computer users, and POSIT is a more recent development in which undergraduates have been involved to help. You take an Android phone and you can record your locations to a database, and when you're out searching for things like victims in a disaster, you can spot the location and the nature of the find that you have. So this talk is going to have an awful lot of links in it. And please don't write anything down. If you're interested in any or all of this stuff, send me an email, alan@bowdoin.edu, and I'll be happy to flip you a copy of this entire talk. So the Homebase project, let me tell you a little bit about that, because this one is the nearest to my heart, and I understand it better than some of the others. In January through May 2008, 4 Bowdoin students and I sat down with the Ronald McDonald House in Portland, Maine, and observed that they were doing all their volunteer scheduling, 200 or more volunteers on a paper calendar on a desk. And it seemed to be an eminently accessible project for some kind of development. So we scratched our heads and did some work, and over the 4-month period, I ran a 1-semester course where we actually developed a prototype, a complete prototype for a volunteer scheduling system, which was, in fact, to my surprise, installed at the Ronald McDonald House at the end of the semester. I thought maybe at best we could show them a prototype, but the kids were unusually gifted and unusually motivated, and they went the whole way, even to the point of developing online help resources for the client and setting the whole system up so that it could be installed on the client's server. It's a GPL licensed software, so that you can download it and migrate it. Now it's been migrated and extended for the Ronald McDonald House in Wilmington, Delaware, because it happens to be a very, very interesting and useful software application for 300 different Ronald McDonald houses around the country, and that's how many there are. And none of them really has a good solution to volunteer scheduling, which is a central activity, as you might guess, in their operation. This project also inspired a new textbook. I should have a copy. Yes. I left my copy. Left my copy up here, which Ralph Morelli and I and Shamindra De Silva, who's one of the major players in the Sahana project, wrote over the last couple of years, and this was published in January. And it's kind of a step-by-step 1-semester course in open source software development if you want to port this activity to a different institution. So I want to talk about how the HFOSS project promotes FOSS development in the undergraduate computer science curriculum. And in its view, the HFOSS project sees FOSS development as very, very important at 3 different levels of computer science. First, the non-majors course, which is an ongoing challenge for faculty to develop. It seems to be a very, very good place in which you can introduce non-majors who have little or no programming experience to learn not only FOSS principles, but also interact with a live FOSS project, an ongoing FOSS project. The second vehicle through which we have found success with putting FOSS in the curriculum is through summer internships. Over the last 4 years, we've run in the HFOSS project summer internships for several students, and they've been mentored by faculty, and they've approached the needs of real clients, and students have found a great deal of success for that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the internships in a minute. And the third activity is the software development course, which the Ronald McDonald House project is an example. Okay. Please interrupt if you have a question or comment, or want to, something comes up that you want to know more about. We're running a little bit late, but I'm happy to entertain quick questions if you have them. Okay. So here's an example of service course that's going on right now this spring. It's being taught by Ralph Morelli, and he's doing one using App Inventor, and it focuses on students building socially useful open source Android applications. They post their homework and their own and their results, their apps on their own websites. And right now, as we speak, they've completed their first projects, and they're now beginning to work on a GPS application, a POSIT type of an application. So for details, you can visit this site, and this shows you how that course is going along. Okay.